Hey, what's up, everybody? This is DJ Keel, and welcome to another podcast. This is episode number 6. Um, I think we start off today on some bad news. Legendary rapper DJ Biz Markie has died. I believe it's from complications to, I think it's diabetes or something like that. Yeah, it's kind of wild that there's so many rappers and just entertainers that didn't make it past the last 2 years. This is particular rappers is really interesting because we this year alone we had Shock G, DMX, and now Biz. There was a couple of deaths last year. I think was it Houdini? I think he died last year or earlier this year. Like this is a lot of legendary artists and rappers just don't seem to make it past retirement age or whatever, which is wild when you think about it. I mean, like obviously there's rockers like Kurt Cobain or whatever that died young, but I mean most rockers are like middle aged and old people. They're just chilling on they're on vacation somewhere now playing golf. I'm like, why can't rappers get to this point? You know what I'm saying? Like it is really weird. I shouldn't say weird. And the thing is though, it's not like it's a conspiracy or anything like that. It's just that I don't know any. Well, I mean, rap hasn't been around long enough to have rappers in their 80s or anything like that. Okay, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. But so many legends have died in the last couple years. It is crazy when you think about it. We don't really have a lot of elder statesmen in the rap game who's still alive and functioning and doing things. So I don't know. I appreciate Biz. And it goes back to what I always say, like people need to give people you admire respect. You gotta give them their flowers now. I was on Instagram before while I was putting together the stuff for the show today, and everybody has footage and videos of Biz Markie, and it's not disrespect to any of those people, but I mean, where was this footage and this stuff talking about how great Biz was when he was alive? Like everybody waits till somebody passes, and they're like, "Oh, look at it! I just behind the scenes footage of 1804 or whatever when we first met, whatever. That would have been cool when he was alive." Everybody holds on to this stuff, and I mean, I I can say personally, like I knew Fife personally before he died, and I wanted to get him to interview him for my podcast. I got to interview Rasta Root, but like I planned to interview him, Five Dog Malik, before he died, and that's on me because it's somebody I know personally. I have his phone number. I could have contacted him and be like, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" And he would have said, "Yeah." But like, I just put it off. I was going this entire time. I've been planning to do this thing. I even interviewed Rasta Root before Five passed, and I was like, I could have talked to this guy before, but you know what I'm saying? Like you got to give people flowers when they're still alive instead of waiting. And you know that's on me. And I I think that personally, I think personally that a lot of people wait until after somebody passed before like, hey, I look at me. I remember this thing. I did like we gotta do this when they're alive, man. We gotta do this when they're alive. All right. Let's talk about Diplo. I know this is not a transition that uh this not free flowing smooth transition, but I gotta talk about Diplo. The last video that I made on YouTube was about the high cost of fame, and I was talking about when you're an artist, people are gunning for you. And I said specifically that I was gonna wait and withhold judgment before I would say, all right, this guy's a scumbag, whatever, whatever. Hope he goes to jail, yada yada. I was like, I gotta wait. And it looks like I was right. So and this is my issue with this stuff here, especially this he said, she said thing. People are abusing the good nature of people in general. They're just abusing it because everyone's going to take your word over the rich person or the famous person. They just automatically assume this person's a guilty scumbag. And here's this person who made a false allegation on somebody. It cost them business. Their name got dragged through the mud. And I'm fairly certain it cost him money down the road because this guy's forever going to be tainted with this kind of allegation. And this is not the first time. And whatever you think about him, you know, he's got that douchebaggy vibe. I'll say it. That's fair. He's got that kind of vibe where you can see why people dislike him. Totally. But due process, it's got to mean something in this country. And here's a situation where somebody filed a lawsuit, screwed this person out of money, business, dragged his name through the mud, and then retracted the lawsuit. Like, my bad. You did a oopsie. Like, how this? Okay, for me personally, and this is why I talked about in the video. Like, I don't want to be very famous. I mean, kind of famous. I'm cool with that, but very famous, I don't want to do that all day. If I can make a ton of money and just slide through the radar, underneath the radar, I would do that all day. I'm the type of person that would buy, like, if I was sitting on $100 million, I'm the type of person that would buy a house that's like, you know, 700,000 over like the $5 million estate or some kind of craziness. Just chilling in the background. I would totally do that. Now, I would absolutely have a hot car, though. I'm not going to say that. It'll be in the garage, and I would barely drive it, but I'll drive a Challenger or a Sonata or something like that. I'll drive that. That's fine. For me, it's not about the showing other people stuff. Like, I don't have that in my nature, the show off thing. And it's a lot of reason why, like, I do events and I don't even take pictures or anything like that. It hasn't even occurred to me that, oh, I should shoot some content for my YouTube channel. I just do the event, go home. I don't think twice about it. I barely take pictures when I'm out doing stuff because I mean, like, I get it. I get what people, this is a business thing and it helps promote your brand or whatever. But like, my thought process isn't even to show anybody what else I'm doing. And partially, I think that doing stuff when you're doing the bragging and showing off how much success you have, it causes jealousy and other problems down the road. I mean, you have to be 100% built for that kind of stuff. So, you know, I definitely feel like I can't even say that he brought it on himself. Like, this is a cost of doing business. When you're famous and you're wealthy, this is just going to happen. You just got to deal with it. But the part where I draw the line is the fact that there's people who can ruin your reputation, just absolutely jack up your bag, prevent you from securing the bag, like just ruin you short term and long term. Get their 5 minutes of fame and walk away, and nothing happens. That is so outrageous to me. Like, this kind of thing infuriates me to no end. I think that I'm probably madder than he is at this point about this kind. Because I'm sure, like, when you get wealthy enough, you're just used to it. But this kind of thing bothers me because it affects actual victims of abuse and this kind of stuff. Most people are gonna take the stance like I did. Well, I'll just wait, see the facts, rather than just outright believing this person who seems to got a really compelling story or whatever. I'm just like, it happens so much that I don't. Uh, I can't rush to judge anybody anymore because this type of thing is so prevalent in society about people who are trying to get their 15 minutes and even collecting a check from somebody. They get to do the run on TV. And the thing is, too, the people who are inviting all the quote unquote victims on TV, there is nobody on TV that was like, oh my God, we have to make a special announcement. We brought this fraud on TV and we apologize to the trauma that we inflicted on the real victim in this situation. And we apologize and we gotta go do an investigation, Fox 5, whatever the thing is, and be like, yo, we're gonna dig deep into this thing and get to the bottom of how this happened so it never happens again on air. And then we're going to go dig up the dirt on this person and make sure these guy gets their just desserts. Like, nobody does that. You know what this is? There's like, Diplo is human scumbag, did this a thing, worst atrocity of all time. Front page. Now, Diplo's accuser recants and apologizes to him and says, my bad, I'm sorry. You know what page that's on? That's not on front page. That's on page 180 something. Underneath the fold, that's the retraction and the explanation for what was front page a minute ago. And the thing is too, like when I was doing research about the initial story, I saw Diplo assault. Diplo did this. Diplo did that. All over the place. Everywhere I was just Googling to get pictures and stuff like that. And it was all over the place. And then here's this person just, saying like, well, oops. I didn't mean to press, like, not even press charges. They just sued for damages. Like that's when you got like, oh, okay, here we go. I don't. And the thing is, though, it's not like a sex thing or whatever between the sexes, or whatever. But like, because this happens to women too, especially this kind of stuff happens to them too. I don't like the fact that somebody can falsely accuse you of doing something, ruin your name and your reputation. Because this is not 1980 something when somebody said something and it was in the newspaper for a day, and then the retractions in another newspaper, and that kind of story gets kind of brushed away as an urban legend. No. Into 2021, July 16, when somebody runs your name through the ringer, that is forever on the internet. And to be honest, the juicier the story and the crazier the headlines, that's the first thing that's going to pop up when somebody looks for your name. There is no recourse for anybody who's gone through this kind of thing. And it pisses me off. I'm a forward-thinking, long-term thinker. And I got to be honest, man. This short-term stuff, people are like, oh, this is fine. Oh, oops, my bad. This story thing. And then it goes away. They go on and live their life. And the person who wrote the story, they go on and live their life. The person this happened to, the actual real victim, they're screwed. They have to go pay people to kind of try and get this stuff taken off the net. But like, it's too late. Once this cow leaves the barn, it is a wrap. And that's why it personally bothers me when this kind of stuff happens to people and they get to walk it back with a oopsie. Like, nah. I'll say this, all right? 100%. If somebody makes a false accusation against you, whatever was supposed to happen to you needs to happen tenfold to them. We got to nip this in the bud to protect actual real victims of assault and whatever heinous crimes are out there. We need to do something to protect them so that people actually believe them and their story carries more weight than what happens here when you got all these people chasing fame or whatever crap and they get to go do their thing and then would take their money and would slink away. It's like a lottery ticket at this point. Like, oh man, I'm not gonna make rent. Oh, I'm just gonna accuse somebody of something bad, ruin their name, collect the check, and get one of these ambulance chaser lawyers to go do this thing for you. I'm honestly, the lawyer should get hit with this thing, and the person who made the false accusation, both of them need to get hit with this thing. Both. I mean, I I don't care. I do not care. Following law and everything like that, like obviously, like there's some kind of paradoxes that we're creating by this issue here, and people are gonna get swept up in the rug. But there needs to be some. I don't have the answers about this thing, but somebody needs to figure out a situation here where we can kind of push back a little bit, a smidgen from what this thing is. We have to put society can't run if people can lie on somebody's name, get wealthy, and then walk away scot-free. Society can't run like this. And you got the hashtag Me Too and all this other stuff, and these kind of situations, it helped and I think it hurt at the same time. Like, definitely it helped. Like, you have people like Rose McGowan that, whatever you think about her, like, she has receipts. And she's one of the people at the forefront of this thing. And all the grifters showed up after. And then nobody's talking about this thing like it was before because all these people watered down this legitimate, really important story or this movement. They watered this down to a Disney hashtag or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, they watered down this serious thing. It grounded up to nothing. And I know people this has happened to, and I can only imagine the crap famous people got to deal with and wealthy people got to deal with. And it's not to protect them, but like, this is a problem. I'm just saying, like, I look at it from the standpoint of the actual victims on this side, and this is a problem. This hurts them more so than the grifters or the wealthy people. Like, because like if you're wealthy, if you're rich enough, you can kind of finagle this thing. Like, you got the Jeffrey guy. Like, he was wealthy enough the first time this thing went down that he got to do some crazy community service and got to go to this jail thing, but he could leave the jail during the day. Like, what the hell? This guy had an insane crap because he's connected and he's wealthy enough. So, like, people high enough on the food chain, this doesn't really affect them as much as it affects the real victims of this kind of stuff. Like, really, when you really boil it down to the situation, the real victims of those things hurt more than anybody else. And I don't know. I think I rambled long enough on that. Like, there needs to be some kind of, people need to get sued, or I don't know. And how do you sue somebody who's broke or doesn't have any money? I don't know what you do to that. And I don't want people to be like, well, you can never work again, and you can. But we have to curb this behavior of making up false things and going on scot-free. Like, we got to curb this behavior, honestly. I thought this story is hilarious. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, they got signed $25 million to Spotify to make podcasts. And They've only made one podcast so far. 7 months ago, they got this deal to go make this podcast. They've only made one podcast. Now, I know what this feels like because this is my third version of a podcast, second version. As DJ Kia, this is my second version of podcast. I have the Behind the Groove podcast. Shout out to Basil Barrington over there. I have that podcast, but that's going strong. We're knocking out podcasts every week on that, a couple times a week. That's going strong. But I had another podcast and that didn't work out. Kind of ground to a halt. It was gonna be more so interviews and that kind of stuff, and it kind of didn't really work out. But I understand here. I didn't get any money for it. I probably would have made more if I got some money for it. But like, I don't think people, until you actually make a podcast, I don't think people really appreciate the work and effort it goes into creating the brand, trying to come up with like, interesting topics that people want to listen to for, half an hour long. Like there's a bunch of stuff that goes into like research. Like I'm talking about news stories and I'm talking about stuff in my lifetime, and you know what I'm saying? Like I'm adding my own spin and my color commentary on stuff. And this takes work. This is not, oh, I'm gonna just turn on my microphone and I'm gonna talk for an hour and I'm gonna be engaging. It's gonna be interesting. And people are gonna want to listen to my podcast, whatever. I have to say though, my numbers are looking really good right now. People who are subscribed and downloading. I'm thoroughly impressed with what's going on with minimal advertising. Outside of YouTube and a little bit on Twitter, I haven't really done too much advertising yet, but people are finding me. And like, I appreciate all you guys and girl who find the podcast and listen to it all the way through. Like, I appreciate that. But, yeah, I think it's interesting how a lot of people have high plans to make a podcast. And then they get started and they're like, oh, wait, this is hard. Just to maintain this thing for a couple months or a year, hard work. Absolutely hard work. This is my second month of doing this one. Got 6 episodes. I've had some trouble, some squeaky wheels and a couple flat tires. But you know what? We're still hammering them out once a week. We're still hammering them out. And I think it's going good. I'm getting good responses from people about the show. So, but these things are complicated. And there's a lot of people who get into this stuff to do it. And they got grandiose ideas about, what they're doing. And it's the same thing with, YouTube, which is why I started doing the raw and uncut videos on YouTube, because I wanted to just to see how it feels to, record and talk about something like a topic, see how the topics gauge, how they went, and, just get into the groove of recording this stuff. And that, I would say this, that helped tremendously in me getting down to just recording an hour straight. I'm usually doing these things just no cuts, just straight through 1 hour. And me doing those little tiny things helped work out the kinks and the sound quality and all this other stuff. And yeah, man, it's a cool experience. I like doing them. And as you've noticed from listening to the podcast so far, I have a lot of things to say. My demeanor generally is mad chill and quiet. Unless I have to get on the microphone and I can talk. But, generally my vibe is just super chill. But there's topics like the Diplo thing and, just the music industry and these other topics that like I'm passionate about that I can talk for hours and hours on, and especially politics and that kind of stuff. This is not going to be a politics podcast, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, like I talk about these things, and I'm generally not a super talkative person. I'm more so a person who I like to scan the horizon. Like I'm watching all the angles and I'm looking at things. That's more my demeanor. And so this is more of me taking in what I see and putting it down on, almost like putting on pen and paper, like putting it down and putting my thoughts through the process of what's going on and whatnot. So that's really what it's for. I think it's hilarious that somebody like these two, I wouldn't say they're grifters, but they're definitely hustling the game right now. And there's people who want to see them, like that thing they did with Oprah. People watch. It got really high numbers, and this is on Oprah's channel. It's not even like NBC or something like that. It's like Oprah's tiny corner of the internet. People watch though. People were talking about it. It was a huge thing. So I think that's why Spotify looked at it as like, okay, these guys are hot commodity. People care what they got to say and what they're doing with their life. So let's give them a podcast. It must be nice to be able to throw 25 million around. I'll be honest, looking at these two, I don't look at a high return on your investment. I like you got a Prince who's just chilling, is collecting his check. I don't look at him, and I could be wrong, but I don't look at him as the hustling type. And I kind of look at her. Well, I mean, she was the actress. She was on Suits. I used to watch Suits. That's where I know her from. And yeah, I don't know. Like maybe their hustle, their grind is a lot lower. But like, here's the thing though: if she was trying to get back into movies and do all this stuff, the podcast would have been the surest way into it, because people are evenly split about them as a couple, and especially their gripes about society and a bunch of other stuff. People are split down the middle. So I think that if you did this thing to kind of give people a better perspective about where you're coming from and what your attitudes about these things, I think it would be helpful. And maybe you can win over some more fans or whatever, but and flip that into more dough. I don't know. I don't want to give examples about how to get the bag, man. I'm learning myself, man. I'm not an expert about how to get the bag. I'll tell you that much. So I don't know. I thought this was interesting that they got paid all this money to make one podcast, and then they left it. We're talking 7 months. What are they doing? I don't know. Okay, we're gonna get onto this. As I've said before, I am a huge, 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 huge football fan. My team's the Dallas Cowboys. You can gag right now if you feel you need to or whatever. Listen, I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan my entire life. I'm talking from when I was like 4 years old. I like the Cowboys. That's how long ago I've been a fan. Ride or die through all of the lean years and the Super Bowl runs. I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan with Jariah Jones and all that stuff. Like, I've been straight up. I've been a fan. So, I watch football intently every year, and there's a lot of stories that I'm acutely aware of, and there's two right now, and I'm gonna more so talk about this one. I don't really want to talk about the Texans and what's going on over there, but like the Richard Sherman thing. I think that this kind of relates to people outside of football. Um, I've done videos about mental health, which nobody watched, and I think that it's I don't know if like a manliness or something like that, but like men have the attitude of, oh, my leg hurts, I'll just walk it off. It'll be all right. I'll be all right. What's that YouTuber? Be a man. The guy that does those little, no, he's not YouTubers, Instagram. He does the be a man. Like that's how a lot of people feel about mental health. And this thing with Richard Sherman is complicated to the point where it doesn't even make sense. And like he's currently in court right now, or he was today. Look, 5 criminal charges, drunk driving, violence to his family, and all this other stuff. And then he's in there with his wife now. I'm like, this is complicated. This is not a story that you could just look at the headlines and figure out what was going on and decide who's the good guy or the bad guy or whatever. This is not one of those stories. I think a couple people were saying it's like CTE and all this other stuff, but like he's a defensive back. He's not hitting people with his head. Like that's more like a running back or a quarterback problem or wide receiver problem. This guy, he's tackling people. He's not, I don't think it's CTE. And think about it too, like he's a smart dude. He's not, this guy went to Stanford or whatever. Like he's not a dummy. He's a smart dude. So I think that there's a lot more to this story, and if this is like a mental health problem, I think that it requires more care than he's getting right now, or even news like this can give. Because whenever there's headlines and this kind of stuff, people rush to, I am going to give you the most sensational headline humanly possible that conveys the most message, that gives you the impression of my point that I'm trying to make. Facts be damned. And it's one of the reasons why I think people have such a negative view about news in general. I think that as it stands right now, news is at the lowest point for people trusting it. And I'm one of the people who doesn't. I'll put it like this, all right? I look at the news when you have a topic that you understand, then you can appreciate what the hell's going on with news. I always give the analogy of, let's say you're a rocket scientist, right? And then you see news at 11 talking about something in your field, and it is riddled with mistakes. And this is the kind of, I guess this was my awakening to not so much, like I still look at the news, I get information from the news, but the official story is not my final destination, right? That's not oh, look, it said it on NBC or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that's not my final destination is I need to do some more research. I'm going to get some dissenting opinions about this thing here. And you have to at this point because news is so garbage. Like this story with Richard Sherman has changed 3 times what the official story was from what news was reporting. Now, it's not like new things happened that didn't happen a couple of days ago. The official story about why this whole thing happened has changed 3 times since this story started. And that's because general news right now is waiting to be first rather than right. And I think that is, for society, that's bad. People do not trust the news. And I don't blame them because, again, like you have to look at it from when you're watching the news on a topic that you know and understand, you can see the holes in this thing and the weasel words of people close to sources of and that kind of thing. You start noticing a pattern. And then when you look at multiple sources on a story, you start noticing, oh, these guys are copying each other. And, like I used to watch Tim Pool, and, this guy used to do stuff for Vice, and, he was on the ground. And I didn't even realize this, but he was explaining, I think when we went to Greece, Greece has been in problems for a long time. But they had migrants, and they had a bunch of other stuff that was going on. And so he went down there to Greece with another journalist. And, he's walking around, he's filming because he's been there before. So he knows where to go. And they were throwing tear gas at him. And he's ducking and dodging rubber bullets and all this craziness. But that's not the point of the story. He was saying that when you have these major events around the world, they don't have journalists on the ground getting these stories for you anymore. Today, they rely on the AP version of a story, and the AP relies on another version of somebody else that was down there. And it's like, it's all hazy. Before all this, everybody used to have a bureau chief, and they used to have offices all around the world, like an office in Egypt and Cairo. They had a Paris office. They had an office in London. They had the London bureau chief. They had an office in wherever, all around the world. And they had journalists in all of these places that, they're just on retainers going out there doing stuff, like actually being on the ground. And today, if there's a hot spot or a crazy story that's going on, they don't have anybody on the ground. They're reliant on third and fourth hand information about what's happening. And a perfect example of that was the last year with the riots and stuff that happened around the world, and particularly in America. There's no journalists down there. There was just people with iPhones and GoPros who are putting up feeds up on YouTube and Twitter. And that's where all these people were getting their information from about what was going on with the riot. They didn't have anybody embedded in there. They had no idea what was going on. And, you can see stories of, like, you can watch the live feed. You're like, wait a minute, that's not what they reported. Like, news is bad. So I say all that to say, when I see a story like Richard Sherman and it's got different versions of events in the span of a couple hours, I'm just like, well, I gotta wait to cast any kind of judgment or even have an opinion about what's happening. And to be honest, that's where I'm at with this stuff. He's got this charge of the drinking and driving and then abuse or assault or whatever at his house. Like, he's trying to break into, I think, his father-in-law's house. Like, I can't get the story straight right now because it keeps changing. I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed in what's going on here with the news and how this stuff happens. But, this is just a byproduct of today of everybody's trying to be first instead of right. And I don't appreciate the news for that. So, let's move on to the Foo Fighters. I have a episode that's coming up talking about pandemic and my aversion to passports and this kind of stuff. And here we have a perfect example of this. Foo Fighters was going to throw a concert, and they were only going to allow people who got the shot to come into the concert. And they all got their shot and everything's straight on their end. And they were like, you can't come in here unless you prove you've got the shot and all this stuff. Which to me, I'm like, I don't like that. When you get the shot, why are you worried about people who didn't have it? Like, this is not your concern anymore. You're over here. This is weird. It's like Schrodinger's cat. We have things that are off and on at the same time. Guilty and not guilty. Vaccinated and not vaccinated. Infected and not infected. Like, this is what we have here. This messaging makes people distrust this entire process. This kind of stuff. So here you have a group, Foo Fighters, made a huge deal about you can't come to our concert unless you get this shot. And we're going to check everybody at the door. The whole 9 yards. They went through this thing. And then they have to cancel the concert because a band member, apparently he tested positive. So people who are on the fence, and I'm not speaking for them, but I'm just saying, you hear stories like this, and this adds fuel to the fire instead of kind of getting this argument and kind of getting people on the same page. I blame everybody for this across the board. Foo Fighters for making a big deal about what this thing is, but you can't even meet your own requirements. Like you see, like I'm saying, like this sounds crazy that you're demanding everybody do this, but you guys couldn't even do it. Like it sounds ridiculous. And this is my aversion to the whole. And I made this point about Ibiza and all these places that are trying to have these protocols in place. Ibiza is an island off the coast of Spain, and Ibiza said you cannot come to this island, which is a party island. It's gonna be doing raves and parties all day and night for the whole summer. Like you can't even step off the boat unless you prove you got your shot and everything else. Like, okay, all right. Ibiza is shutting down right now because of an outbreak in a place that's got all these extra protocols. And again, if there's people on the fence who are distrustful of everything that's going on right now, this is not helping. This, in essence, proves their point. I'm for people getting the shot. I don't have an issue with that. But I am a hard pass against this kind of lockdown thing with passports and creating second-class citizens and all this stuff. I don't know how people cannot see this turning into a problem. Have you not seen Demolition Man? Have you not seen Children of Man? Have you not seen, like you're saying, like Logan's Run? You name it, this thing is a problem. You're going to create an issue here. I think there's like, people are so beaten down and stressed out about this entire process that they're just like, they just want this thing to be over. And I get it, but this is not the way. Shout out to The Mandalorian. This is not the way. Doing this kind of thing with the passports leads to this other road. I don't think this is Gattaca. We don't want to go down that path. That's bad. This doesn't go away. This isn't a short-term situation. This is your life from here on out. And this thing is going to have pure mission creep. So without being conspiratorial or anything like that, I could look at this thing and be like, this is going to divide the country into a bigger problem than you think. A perfect example of this, in Paris, in France right now, riots. Because they were like, we're going to do this passport thing and we're going to give kids the shot. And people in France are like, oh, hell no. And people were on the fence about it, or they're like, you know what, they're doing the right thing. They drew the line here. And I think that a lot of people are going to draw the line here. And you're going to have a different set of problems. So I don't think it, to me, the passport stuff doesn't solve the problem you want. You got to treat it like zombies. If you're going to do this thing here and you're going to be gatekeepers for a place that's not clean, this is pointless. And as the Foo Fighters learned, this is pointless. I don't know how else you can say it. This is utterly pointless. And I think a lot of people don't realize that even if you're vaccinated, you can get it again. There's a lot of people who don't know, they don't know that. Which is why the passport thing doesn't work. If people who are vaccinated can still pass it to people, if they can still catch it, well, the passport's useless now and it's used for other things. I'm just saying. And, we have, the Yankees? Like seven players in the Yankees. They got tested positive again. I mean, this thing is, and this is the problem, and this has always been my issue about this. This is a far more complicated subject on all sides that requires nuance, empathy, and some time to think it through. I'm looking down the road 20 years. What's gonna go on here if this continues? I don't know if it's good. Gotta be honest. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to leave the podcast on a downer. I guess we can And on a lighter note, EDC Orlando is happening. It's a huge festival down in Florida, and they got a bunch of DJs there, a bunch of artists performing. Like it's a big deal. I'm happy to see, with all the cancellations and all the craziness, that stuff is happening again. I think EDC Las Vegas is going down as well. So yeah, man, I'm happy to see that people are able to function and get back to some kind of normalcy. Because it was looking sketchy for a minute. Real talk. And it's still looking sketchy. Where I'm at, they had a concert and people were sitting in their cars. I'm like, yo, this is BS. How come people can't go and just sit in the park and listen to some music or whatever, or dance in there in the little corner? Like, why can't we do that? I mean, we have a lot more information than we had before. And the scientists say outdoors is good. So everything right now should be outdoors. Literally everything. You got a boat cruise, take the top off, have a boat cruise, have a boat party. If you're doing your thing in a park somewhere or some kind of festival and it's outdoors, go for it. Like we have to get back to some kind of normalcy. And so I'm happy that a bunch of these festivals are coming back. There's a huge festival. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere in Europe. They had like 180,000 people came out to this thing. And I'm like, yes, like this kind of stuff makes me happy because DJs are better playing in front of people, and we need the audience again, and we need to have normal back. We need normal back. So I'm excited about this thing. And this is the 10th anniversary for Orlando. So I mean, this is cool. And the lineup's pretty good. If I was down in the States, I would definitely go. There's a lot of people that I would like to see them play some sets or whatever. And was it like November 12th, 13th, and 14th? This is awesome, man. Actually, I may try and look and head down there. Hopefully, borders and all this stuff is open and can travel better. But yeah, I'm excited about this kind of thing. And I want more festivals. I want more concerts. I want more bars and clubs. I want things going. I think that, if you got to do your part, okay, cool. If you don't want to do your thing, but you're still being safe, all right, cool too. Like that has to be an option too. It can't be just one way or the other. But like I'm gonna move off of that topic, right? Yeah, man. I think this is awesome. I'm glad that people are starting to do stuff. And this thing that's going on right now cannot last forever. This has to peel back and have some kind of new normal or normal. Something has to happen here. And I hope we're on the pathway to that where people can work again. I got booked to do some stuff and we'll see how that goes. I may or may not film some of it, but we'll see. I'm just excited that, people still care. Put it like that. I'm kind of curious though, how many people, and I should put a poll up about this, how many people have maintained their libraries and did the work to make sure they're up to date with all the music and whatever during their off time. Like how many people did that? Or did you just go on vacation and watch Netflix and collect a check and you forgot about DJing? Did you practice? Did you do all that stuff? I'm kind of curious about that. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for listening to another podcast. We got another one coming up next week with some spicy topics. Should be interesting. Anyways, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe on the YouTube side. Download the podcast on the podcast side of it. Get download on your apps and subscribe on their apps. Helps the algorithm, helps more people see this thing. And, share it with their friends and everything like that. So, anyways, peace out, bitches.